Hello, nerdy romantics. We are here today to talk about the newest, most wonderful episodes of Supercell Season 1. Did I not say that with enough gangster, y'all? Supercell Season 1. How about
And you
that?
also have to say
That's
it with an English
yeah,
accent.
right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to even attempt that one. But we are going to talk about that. We're going to chop it up and we're going to spoil a lot of stuff. So, if you have seen Supacell, then come back and discuss with us. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. Okay. Howdy, ladies. How are we doing
We're
today?
good. Thanks for having us.
I'm fine.
So
Good to be
today
here
we
again.
All right, great. So today we have with us Stacie and Marcie, my bestie co-host here to talk about Supacell. So first off, before we really get into the discussion, I'd like to know from each one of you, if you can remember, how you found out about this show and what did somebody say to you to make you say, hey, I want to watch this show? I think for Marcie, we already know, but Marcie.
So I heard about it from YouTube and talking about whether or not we want to do a podcast around it. And up until that point, I actually hadn't heard about it. And then I wanted a synopsis, and I somehow stumbled upon an article with Ratman and talking about the premise of him taking the concept of something like sickle cell that only black people have, or majority black people have, people of
Mostly.
color, and flipping that. And what if he made it a superpower? And that being the kind of seed that became Supercell. And at that point, I was hooked.
All right. Stacie, what about you?
Yeah, I wasn't hooked like that. I'm on Netflix, and when Netflix looks at the algorithm of what you watch and what you like, and I tend to
Mm-hmm.
watch more action. Then I also like, superheroes, that kind of thing, secret powers, that, and then you throw in English in there, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna watch this, and especially with it being superheroes that were of color. So black
Right.
people that were
Right.
superheroes, because I used to like, Black Lightning that was on the CW and stuff like that. And I always thought, and Luke Cage, I was like, oh, superheroes, black people. We know there's gonna be some problems. So they're gonna have to overcome something. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to see it just for that. So when it came out, as soon as it, pretty much almost the weekend of the week it came out, I pretty much watched it that weekend. Not the whole thing, but that's when I started watching it. But you got me hooked when you say, black superheroes in today's world, in this environment, not like it is an alternate universe, but it isn't an alternate universe. It wasn't like
Right.
some fantasy world. It was like, yeah, here now I can see everything happening that they have. So it was like, oh, I'm hooked. I'm ready to read. I'm ready to read this. Ready to watch it.
Yeah. I feel like that was kind of a little bit of the same for me as far as wanting to watch it, or the whole premise of watching it is, you got superheroes, you got black people in these days and times. I did not know it was British until I started watching.
Me either.
But I'm down for that. So when I first heard about it, it was from a fellow author who writes sci-fi romance, and she posted it that she had watched it, and she posted a picture of the Netflix ad for it. And, she basically just kind of asked people about it. And so a few people were like, I don't know if I want to watch that, because, of course, the Netflix poster is just Michael with his glowing eyes. So you're not sure at that moment if it's a superhero thing or if it's maybe a horror thing or
What had me in
what.
either way.
Yeah, yeah. I know it will have you, Stacie, but me, no. I have a very low tolerance for horror movies. They stay with me too long.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, I'm not good with those. So that's why I was like, I see what some people were saying about it, but when she said no, it's not like that. It's sci-fi, and the fact that it had super in front of Cell, I was like, okay, this is a superhero thing. So I think I'm going to check this out. And so as I actually started, getting into it, I was like, oh, okay, this sounds like something on our nerdy side that we would love. And I think I'm going to try it out. And from that first episode, after the first episode, maybe in the second episode, I knew I was gonna be hooked, and I said something about it on Threads. I said I'm hooked on this officially, and we will have a podcast episode about it. Even if I'm the only one to say something about it, because I am totally hooked on this show from only an episode and a half at that point. So what did y'all think in general about this particular show as a superhero show? Stacie, what about you? What did you think in general after you came away from watching it?
I liked it. I mean, I can't wait for the next season to come out of it. I think they have been renewed for another season, but I enjoyed it. And part of the reason that I enjoyed it is because I guess it's also English. When you see TV shows and over there, the cast is, I guess, more diverse for Black people, because a lot of times when we have, I noticed like right away, like, dude, all the women were brown skinned, not necessarily light skinned, and here you would have had a whole lot more. I mean, I'm not saying that we are up to a point. If you go to in the U.S., there's usually going to be a lot of times is lighter, and
Yeah.
it was just a variation of different skin tones for the whole cast, which you don't always see over our side of it over here. And and so that was one of the first things I noticed, was that the diversity of the cast, that kind of the diversity of the Black actors and actresses there. And then when you're watching it, I mean, you see it's the buildup of, who's going to have these what powers, and you had the start of a guy in love with a girl, and he's in love, with um his girlfriend, and none of these other chicks. He ain't even seeing them. It's just him and that girl. And I mean, when I first saw, I was like, oh, this girl's coming. You see that first when he meets that. I cannot tell you the names now anymore, but when
Yeah.
he's delivering the package, and
Yeah.
is the sister of one of the other soon to be superheroes.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, so I was like, he didn't pick up on none of that. It was like, I'm here to deliver the package. Here your
I'm
package,
done.
and
Yes.
the box package, not my package. It's the box. Here you go,
Right.
and I'm gone. And he's out the door. And you see the love he has for his girlfriend, and how much she supports him and loves him, but also that she understands the danger he's in. I mean, I know we're kind of going a little bit beyond that, but you see, and they all are different walks of life. So that was the good thing. You had this guy straight up and coming, like, I'm trying to, I want to be married and I want to do this. And then you have this hardworking, I'm trying to become, hire, was it a nursing this manager, whatever, in her
Yeah.
thing. And she had a flaky sister, but she was trying to do right and all that kind of stuff. And then have this guy kind of, on his, what is it? He's crossing. Could he be a villain? Could he not? He's on the
Right.
line there, but
Yeah.
but you also see his struggles and what he's going through, and it's just seeing all of that. They weren't all from cookie cutter kind of environments. It was
Right.
just different environments, and how just people randomly are touching each other in different ways, but not really being apart. How it was like,
Exactly.
oh, 7 degrees of separation, or was it 6 degrees of separation, something
Yeah,
like
6 degrees
of
of
that.
separation.
6 degrees. It's like how we're all kind of linked, and you don't know how you're linked because you as you go to the store, he met this person, he met that person, he met the person who knew that person. They were all connected. He just didn't realize it at that time.
Right.
And I mean, how small the world is, but how large it is. So I mean, I like that. And I really enjoyed it. It was just really a good show, and it had really in depth about the characters, which a lot of times we don't see. Oh, a lot of times you don't have really good character development. They'll be like, I love Superman, but he's also kind of not saying one dimensional, but a lot of times in the past it's been like, he's the writer of rights and good, and it's like, don't tell me you was tempted at some point, Superman, to do
Right.
wrong. And in this one, you see how the world is affecting how they're going to be. Are they good, bad, indifferent? But it's all those environments and how other people could possibly change them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to go into detail on some of the other stuff, but I did enjoy it. I love seeing a superhero, and especially with people of color, and especially Black people, because I'm Black, but really with a cast of people that we typically don't see. Really, except for Black Lightning. I can't recall really a superhero that was just Black people. And but it also
Meteor
reminded me some
Man.
of the
Let's
same
not let us not
Meteor Man. Yeah, I'm
let's
just
not
saying, like,
keep
but I'm
skipping
not
over
talking about.
Robert Downey Jr. and the Meteor Man because that was
But
Black
that was a
superhero.
movie. I'm talking about like a TV show that
Okay,
someone
I'll
has
give you that.
done.
Okay.
A TV show.
But
Yeah.
like a TV show, a series. I Meteor Man, and there's two. What's the other one?
Spawn.
Spawn. There's a lot of different
Yeah.
stuff. But
There's a
you
lot
rarely
of
see like
movies,
some really
but
like that. You can say Luke
yeah.
Cage up to a point, but
Yeah.
and then you see how many Black female characters that are the superheroes too there. So like you don't really see that.
Exactly.
See that as much as like the only thing I really can see is Black Lightning. That's all a family, it seems. But the storyline, if you think about the storyline, it's nothing new. I kind of knew what some of the stuff was going to happen. I'm not going to go into detail right now, but some of the stuff is like but every story is almost the same if you really take a look at it.
Yeah.
But does it make you keep wanting to watch it? And that is what it made me keep wanting to watch. Like I know that spoiler alert, that he goes to the future and finds out someone he loves is gonna die. I gotta stop this because we all want to stop somebody we love from dying and everything. So you're gonna go back, and
Right.
every story we hear about somebody going back in the past, going back to fix something, it never works out.
Right. Never goes right.
It never works
Hey, you're
out. So
spoiling really
it's not gonna
early.
work
You're
out.
spoiling really early and really broadly.
Sorry, but but just everything we see, like, I gotta come back and do this. It's like something gonna happen. You gonna mess up something, but at the same time, you want to see what happened.
Yeah.
Does he actually beat it? Does he, will he change the whole timeline? Will he do that? And I wanted to see if he did it, if he could bring all those misfits together. And that's also why I like English stuff, is because I used to watch The Misfits, which is another English TV show about superheroes, and they were truly misfits. But I liked this one a lot better.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna talk too about some other, superhero TV shows kind of that are sort of in this realm. So yeah, more to come on that, and more to come on kind of the superhero aspect and the superhero character arcs. But Marcie, what about you overall? What did you think overall of the show? And will you be coming back for season 2?
So I will be coming back for season 2. I enjoyed it. I think to me it was atypical superhero in that I feel like all of these people are evolving into their, and some of them aren't committed yet to being superheroes. And so I
Yeah.
think that it's, to me, it is more than that. I think at the beginning you really only see one person who might be committed to any act of heroism. And one of the things I think is different about this is that these superheroes are not Avengers Unite type superheroes, in that there's not that
Hmm.
air of altruism that you generally think of when you think of what a superhero is. These people are truly in it for themselves, and the reasons they happen to band together are still driven by some sort of personal gain, as opposed to what you think of in the superhero realm of wanting to save, quote unquote, the world and wanting to be a hero of mankind. This not them. They not that. They're not
Right.
they're not that. They don't, they barely. I do
Yeah.
like that the characters are, like Stacey said, diverse in that they do come from a lot of different backgrounds. I did think it was interesting, Stacey, to your point about the 6 degrees of separation. I liked that he had the situations where they were close to each other and didn't recognize like we did. By then we did, because we were counting,
Hmm.
oh, that's two together, oh, that's three together,
Yep.
oh, that's two together.
Yeah.
Like we were looking at it, but that they didn't recognize it in the moments, the momentous, but the how many times the paths did cross. And I think for me the most poignant one was when he had located everybody but one, and he was sitting on a booth seat right behind them, and
Yep.
he didn't realize it. They didn't
Yo.
realize it, and they were both seeking the same thing in some ways, because I think that's another thing, that underlying theme of wanting to understand what's happening to them. And I think looking for a connection to somebody else who might be able to explain it, but then realizing that almost every time you do, that person ends up looking more like your adversary than your friend. I think that's probably kind of a hard place to be, right? Because you start to realize that not everybody is, most everybody isn't viewing this as a gift, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes a gimmick, sometimes a cool thing you can do, but nobody is really looking at it as, oh, I got superpowers now, go me. No, everybody's like, what I gotta do to be normal again, right? Or let me use this gift for my personal gain. And I have never seen more enterprising people in my life than how to,
Right.
I mean, how to peddle a gift. You hear me? I was impressed
Yeah.
by, and I think that kind of shows it too, because there was a level of maturity, I think, in the older characters versus the younger ones. Like you see Andre, spoilers, you see Andre fighting not to use his gift for his personal gain, right? Not to use his
Right.
gift for, or his superpower for the thing that would be the quickest, right? You see him trying everything. But then you see Rodney, and Rodney is like putting on 2 for 1 specials like he's Domino's. He is like,
Yes.
let me get it, right? And I think it was an interesting dynamic to see
Yes.
across the generations, across the ages, across their, like Stacey said, their circumstances. Like you see how Sabrina, because she is trying to be a nurse manager, and she's a very straight up kind of law abiding, and she fights so hard to stay in that place. And so you see all these different versions of what having powers would be. And I think, to me, that
Hmm.
was interesting, because I don't, although you see somebody struggle with it, by and large, when you look at the Avengers, once they realized they had powers, they were like, go, like, cool, I'm in. But this was not that kind of group, and I
Right.
think that was interesting. And these were real characters, like Stacey said. These were real characters with families, with people that they loved. And that was, I think, another thing, is that in some way they were all driven by love for someone or something, right? That is the thing that usually tips the scale for them about how they choose to
Hmm.
proceed. It's that is the moment, I think, that makes me really want to stay connected to them. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, a couple of times I'm like, these people are trash. Like, I mean, you look at Taser. Honestly, you look at Taser, and sometimes I'm like, do you have a soul? I mean, sir, what are you doing? But then you see him
Yeah.
sitting beside, then you see him at the hospital, and you're like, oh, okay, so okay, I get it. But so I think that was interesting. It was cool to see a different culture, and to see what what British life is like, and to see and to be able to get that view into what it's like in different places and for different types of people. I think that was also pretty cool to see, because I think a lot of times we don't. And it was interesting to see the comparisons to how certain communities are the same regardless of what continent you put them on, whether you call it the
Mm-hmm.
projects or in the state. Very much the same experience if you ask the people who live there. And so I think that that was interesting to me. I do think, Stacey, that they broke the streak we talk about when we talk about British characters, because I will say that darn near everybody was attractive in this one. Like, they were
They
all
did. They
they
did
were
break
all
that because I
pretty.
mean,
They were
usually sometimes there's like somebody,
right.
you know,
Right.
that would be fine for British TV, but over here, that's like that ain't gonna
Right.
sell
No.
here. You'll be a character actor over here,
Exactly. Doing doing
Right.
doing little theater in the
but
summer. But
yeah,
yeah, but no, this
but
cast was top tier. Like, they were everybody was interesting. It was pretty. I think that I laughed when I saw that and thought, oh wow, no, this group right here is, they all generally attractive, from the main characters to the supporting characters. I think, but I did enjoy the diversity, and I actually think I
Yeah.
appreciated that a little bit, because they could have given us the low budget version of every one of these characters. Like, we could have gotten, and I don't know. I think that I was kind of impressed by that, because I think sometimes when it's an all black cast, especially, or a majority black cast, that sometimes we do get a different level of a combination. Like, we get two high characters, like uber professional, and then we get just got their SAG card. So this, I felt like, was a different kind of cast, and they were all. I think the level of acting and I think it
Mm-hmm.
really helped you to really follow that character development, to really want to see and know more
Yeah.
about these characters, and then to get to, like Stacey said, those moments to be able to drill down and see at the majority of one character's arc, and then watch it intersect with another one. I think that isn't something you get to see as often, and I did appreciate that they took the time, even though things were going really quickly, that they took the time to slow it down when it was necessary, and to give you the pieces you were going to need to connect. Because I think that sometimes we don't always get that, and then at the end there's a big scene and you're like, what's happening? But this one, it helped understand why you needed these people, these times, these places. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that was so. Yeah, I'm not normally a sci-fi person, and at the first episode I wasn't sure if I was going to be a supercell person, but it was a lot. One thing I will say to viewers is that it is almost always intense. Like, this was not
Yeah.
I didn't this was not Robert Downey Jr. throwing a one liner to lighten the room. This was not a comedic Hulk who could make you laugh at his unfortunate.
Yeah.
No, this was intense and dramatic from the first minute to the last minute, and you got to be ready for that, like, adrenaline push. But I started to appreciate it more as the story moved on. But that first episode, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to handle that level of intensity for five more. But by the end, I was so invested. I was like, "You just got to suck it up, sis. You got to keep going." Because, to Stacey's point, now I'm invested. Now I need to know what's going to happen. Now I need to see who he's going to find next. Now I need to see if they're going to say yes. So,
Right.
but that's the thing I would say is, if someone asked me to describe it in a singular word, it would be intense.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that. It definitely was intense. It didn't seem to really even be a down moment. Even when there was a down moment, that down moment was one that you had to sit and listen, because they were giving you information for the next up moments. And that's kind of where I think people actually missed the whole sickle cell thing. For a few that missed that part, is because they're explaining that in the down moments. And they're talking about the connection, the sickle cell connection, in the down
Yep.
moments. But we'll talk a little bit more about the sickle cell thing in a minute. What I really want to talk about that Marcie kind of touched on is, these character arcs and the whole motivation for these characters and why they're not the Avengers. The first thing that I noticed when they actually started to come together, or what made them come together, is everybody that is part of the Supacell, we're going to say the Supacell Avengers at this point. Everybody that's part of this group had somebody that they were trying to save. And that was the whole reason I think that a lot of them got together, because I think with Sabrina, she's the nurse with superpowers. She, of course, as Marcie said, she didn't even want to have the superpowers. She's trying to figure out how to get rid of them. And she even told Michael, which is the first guy that we meet, she even told him, I want to get rid of these powers. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be with you in this. And I think at that point too, that was when, they had the club scene and what happened there at the club scene, and that she thought, somebody had died. So she was like, I really don't want to be a part of this. But then when her sister, Charlene, went missing, that's when she got invested, right? And, Rodney, he just wanted to exploit his powers, as Marcie said. He just wanted to exploit them. But when his best friend Spud got in trouble and he, needed to get him out of trouble, he went and sought Michael out, because he's like, okay, I need somebody else that also has these powers that can help me, that, whatever. And so that's kind of how the gang got together, is because they had somebody in their life that they felt like they had to save, or they had to stand in for. And, even with Taser, I mean,
it was tiny.
It
was tiny.
Gosh.
Yep. He was doing it for Tiny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is that if he hadn't have tried to beef with that other gang in the first place, but then that's what do gangs do? What do rival gangs do? They beef with each other. I mean, this is what goes on. They beef with each other, and they have issues. So, with the whole getting the gang together, to me, that's where like the character arc happens, is they have somebody that they have to save. Michael, of course, has this person at the beginning, so that's why we kind of see that happen. But also, I love the fact that we have these not only diverse stories, but as all of us have said, diverse characters. And they're diverse characters, but they're mostly Black characters. And it's just, this is why we are striving, all of all the BIPOC creators out there, and allies of BIPOC creators. This is why we strive for representation. This is why we want to see more than one person of color on a TV show. This is why we love things like Bridgerton that may not actually be what was happening in Regency, England at the time, but we need to see people of color. Why? Because we need to see that diversity happen. And what happens is with other TV shows that have majority white characters, we see that diversity. We've always seen that diversity in America, maybe even in other places, maybe even in England, as Stacie has said, maybe we do see that in other places, but we don't necessarily see it with Black people or with people of color, having a show with such diversity. I mean, and it's not just diversity of their shades, which I loved. Queen Sugar does that too with different shades of Black people, but they also have a diversity of socioeconomic condition. They have a diversity of what they're going through. So, obviously, Taser's a gangster, right? Taser is what we would call a thug. But is everybody in here a thug? No. But is almost everybody here a Black person? Yes. And from what Rap Man has said, in a couple interviews, this is basically what we're seeing is we are seeing South London. So South London is not that big of a place on the. I mean, if you look at it on the map, it's not that big of a place. That might have a lot of people, but it's not that big of a place. And you have all of this diversity happening. And he's like, I want to show South London. I want to show what this looks like. It's just people also have superpowers too, But I want to show, what's out there. I want to show the world what South London is. And I love that for him. I love that he's doing that, and I love that he's showing this diversity, because in our lives we already see it. The diversity, we see it. But when we turn on our TVs and we go to the movies, we don't always see that. And if other people are not seeing what we see, then they get a skewed vision of who we are, right? They get one picture of who we are. We are, whoever, whoever they have as representation, whoever they've been seeing. Right now, as we are recording this, we just came off the Olympics, and everybody is like all about Snoop Dogg, right? So what if, what if this is the only representation of a Black person that you've seen, right?
He's a great representation.
He did us proud. He did us proud.
But I see what you're saying, like the diversity of Black people, like you said, socioeconomic backgrounds, where where they are in life, and that. Mm-hmm. And if we're Black, we've go to a family reunion. We got from all sorts of people, all same family. We all go to the same church, and we're all in these different types of backgrounds and all that, and we are still together. In a common thing that we're all Black, but we all have different backgrounds. Even on this call, we all come from different parts, cities, states, just families, and how our families are, and how we see the world. It's different. But when you go to the show, typically, if there's only one Black person, and it's this, until recently, it will always be the same kind of Black person.
That's what I'm saying.
Still recently, growing up, it was always the same Black person. It was just
the best friend. Yes,
best friend. Athletic Black guy. Have y'all seen the little meme where they showed the cartoons and it was this the Black character? He was the same with the high top fade in every last cartoon. The Black kid was the same character. He was drawn the same way, like all these cartoons, and it was
gosh. Yeah,
that's how it is. If you kind of look at a lot of shows, it's the same kind of Black character. Yes. And they get into like these zones of that. But when we, as Black people, we know you have this whole spectrum of what kind of what we are and how we act, and how we go through life. We have a whole spectrum. But if you look on TV and movies, you're not going to see that. And I like the fact that they showed that, hey, you have, like I said, the thug there. You have the hard-working woman trying to make it. You have the man who, yes, went to jail, but trying to get back on track. You have the guy who seems to have it all, and then you have this other guy who's like the drug deal. I was like, so how has he not been arrested?
Right? He's just, and he's like the flamboyant one,
barely.
Yeah, and he was like,
He's just barely
I
keeping
was
it
like,
together.
how has he not been
His best
arrested
friend.
already? How has he not been
Right.
in jail? Because he was just coming up, so hey, you want some
Right.
weed?
I just
Like, it
knew
was,
the
Right.
first time,
I
that
was like,
first scene
his,
when we meet him, I just knew that dude was a cop. When he was sitting on the curb,
me
I
too.
just
I
knew
know
that
he
dude was a
he
cop
had
Yes.
to be
because
a
it
cop to
just
be
didn't
doing
make
that.
sense that you would do
He
that.
had to be.
Yes, I just
Yes.
knew.
I mean, he was.
You couldn't tell me different. When he didn't get arrested, I was like, wow. Because he was really
Right.
He's a
happy.
cop because he's trying to get
He
people.
got
It's
to
like,
be.
and other black people like trying to be arrested. No, I want a weed.
Right. It was very,
But he was a drug. I was like, I mean, a bad one, but I
if
mean,
not for Spud,
how has he not been arrested multiple
because
times?
of Spud, I really believe
Right.
it's because Spud had at least a little bit of management experience, and he was like, "This is a good risk. This is a bad risk."
Yeah.
But to your point, I thought a couple of times it was a narc. I had to be because nobody would do that for real. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"This is stressing me out,
Right.
sir. You're going to jail before we even get started." Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was not, but I think when we finally see his backstory, I think it explains a lot too. Like it was interesting to see that,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
was like, wow. I mean, I think when we finally hear Andre's backstory and it reshapes our understanding of his situation and informs us
Mm-hmm.
differently about how we thought he got there. I think that was another poignant moment. I think that was a speech that a million black men have wanted to make. I think in that moment
Yeah.
it was probably one of the most powerful scenes. It was quiet and it was, to your point, Yvonne, it was one of the calm moments because that's when they give us something,
Mm-hmm.
but and it was so beautifully acted. Like I think that's the other thing is the quality of the performances throughout this whole thing. Nobody lagged. Nobody dropped. Nobody was
Right.
none of this was, I'm not going to call any names, but none of this was the mass media acting of that we sometimes get packaged and
Yeah.
presented to us. This was
Yeah.
people embodying their characters in ways that I was refreshed to see. Like when you see him in that moment, like I was there, like I was like, I wish I could hire this man. He's not even real. But in that moment, like it was his
Right.
connection to who his character was just so powerful that when you
Mm-hmm.
see all the rest of the decisions he makes, you understand him differently in that moment. Like I think you understand him differently in that moment. And I was very moved by that in a lot of ways because I think it's easy to be flippant about that and it's easy to trivialize the choices he makes later as that inevitably that was what he was going to have to do. But the truth is, when you look at how hard he's trying to do differently and what is driving him to it, like it was just, I mean, the interpersonal relationships I think was really, to your point. Rodney survived because of Spud. Their
Yes.
interpersonal relationship was important. Michael was dependent on Dion. We get to see that interpersonal dynamic. We get to see
Yes.
Taser and we get to see him with his homeboys, but we also get to see him when he's by himself and trying to figure out who he's going to be. We get to see him with Tiny and see that different interpersonal relationship. We get to see Michael with
Right.
his best friend and we get to see that play off. We get to see Andre and his best friend and their how they interact. And I think that's something we also don't often get to see is fully formed
Yeah.
interpersonal relationships where
Yeah. And
where they're symbiotic and they're real. And the other person
mm-hmm.
is, I mean, honestly, when Spud was in jeopardy, like I was concerned. I was like, Lord, we ain't gonna make it. I was down to bed because I cared in that moment. I was angry when Andre's friend said, "Why don't you just go?" I felt something in these moments for these people and for the characters that were surrounding them. And I think that's also a tribute to the writing and to the acting is that the characters that were behind them and helping create those arcs were phenomenal in humanizing them as we see them evolve into their superhero statuses. And when you look at Char Charlene, when we
Charlene.
look at
Charlene,
Charlene,
the sister.
and we
Yeah.
see their relationship and and
Charlene and Sabrina.
Charlene and Sabrina,
Sabrina's
and
the
we
one
see
with the powers.
them,
Mm.
and the how they interact and the dependency they have on one another. Like I mean it was a testament to those supporting actors, um that they actually to became more than supporting actors. Like, and there's points where you can't even tell who's supposed to be the lead because everybody is carrying this storyline forward, and I think that's a tribute to both the writing and the acting.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think too that's what makes this different from Stacy what you were saying about other superhero movies, especially superhero movies from comic books. So this is not one from a comic book. So, Ratman and, is creating, has to create this world. He has to build this world, writing has to happen, and then he has to get the actors that are going to, like Marcie said, totally embody these characters. And so that's why we don't get that one side, or we get the dual side kind of thing, like with Superman and Clark Kent. Superman is this one iconic symbol thing. Clark Kent is this one personality on the side. And part of it as far as we see in these different movies, part of the reason why we get that is because part of it is they're written that way, but also part of it is because a lot of their story is told in the comic books. Like, they're going through the drama in the comic books, so they're like, we're not gonna put all that on screen. We're just gonna give you some good fight scenes. We're going to give you the iconic character parts, the parts that you're coming to the movie for, the Easter egg parts. And then too, the people who are coming to these movies, just because they know these characters and don't necessarily even read the comic books, they're not going to want all that either. They're going to want a good action sequence too. But because this is it's in a TV show format, it kind of helps that it's on Netflix, so they can do whatever they want. and we can actually see more of the characters happening. And three, because this is not a comic book, doesn't have the comic book as canon or anything like that. The show is it. We have to make these characters as round as we possibly can. These characters have to be fully formed. And Marcie, I'm with you. That's what is drawing me in for another season, is I am invested in these characters and these characters' relationships. And I like how they're portrayed. I like the fact that Charlene is working on her doctorate, but she's as ghetto fabulous
But she is just
as
as ratchet as they
as she
come.
can
She
be.
is. She is.
Yes.
She is.
and I mean, she has a few stereotypical things with being ghetto fabulous. I'm dating the leader of the gang. I'm hanging out. When he's messing up, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna I'm
I'ma
gonna
still
go to his
forgive him because
house
he
and
bought me this.
Right.
yes, right. He bought me this
He bought me this. That's
right.
treating me like crap, but he bought me this.
Right. But then, next day she's talking about, I got to get to this, doctoral
Right.
dissertation.
10 more
I was
words
like, what?
and I never have to hear thesis again. I was like, thesis? Girl,
Right.
last night. Whew. You was in your freaking
Oh,
dress, but
God.
today we
But
writing a
see,
thesis. Okay.
right. But I love that, though. I
Yeah.
love that,
Yeah.
part of it, because that's telling me this character is not a stereotype. This character is not going to be what my preconceived notions want this character to be.
Mhm.
And
You know,
I'm hoping everybody comes in like
you know, I,
that,
I
kind of.
think Andre had a thing like that too because after he makes the choice he makes,
Oh
after he
yeah.
accidentally discovers his powers the way he does, I think in
Yes.
his choice to then the next time we see him, he's putting on a tie to go to a job interview, and I was like, that is not what I thought was gonna happen after
Right.
that. Like that's not stereotypically
Exactly.
what you would see happen after that. And so I think
Mhm.
that that was another place where we didn't see the stereotypical writing of who that character would be. That's not
Yes.
what anyone else, what most characters would have done once they were in his position. They would have just been like, cool, I now got a way to make money, let me go do that. And instead he was like, let me put on this
Mhm.
tie and try to go be this stocking clerk at the grocery store. Like it's very another one of those places where it was super atypical of what you were, what you would expect. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Dion was probably the most atypical because I'm gonna be honest, y'all, and let's be real. Your man comes home and says, "Look what I can do, honey," and transports himself to different areas of the room, and then tells you about what happened to him yesterday, and you just be like, "Oh, okay." And then go to work like nothing
Yeah.
happened. I'm sorry, what? You say that all that happened to you, plus you got powers, plus also your eyes can flash like that, plus also you,
Yeah.
but you
I'm not
cool,
going.
but you
Yeah, I'm not
good,
going to work and be like,
right?
okay,
And she just keeps
this is
adding like
great.
that's normal conversation between you and your boo. Then all of a sudden he almost died, got superpowers, and keeps leaving unexpectedly and showing up unexpectedly. But she took it all like a champ. Like I was like, that's a well-rounded character because most of the ones I know would have gone shell way before she did. And even when she did, she was very polite. She was the most
Yeah.
polite and patient woman that I have ever seen because I questioned myself if I was ever gonna be that good. Because I was like, oh no.
I muted myself so you wouldn't hear because I wanted to say something before kind of moved off about when he found out he had superpowers and he Andre and he said he was going to do the interview
Hmm.
and it's like the one thing he was going to do like use the superpowers to get money. It wasn't even his idea. It was his friend. Like, well, this is what you need to do
Right.
with those
And I was mad
superpowers.
about that
Yes.
because,
He didn't even think to do that was not what it,
hmm
because of his history, like I ain't trying to get in trouble again.
hmm
And it's like his best friend is like, well, if you rob from the rich,
right, if you rob from
who's not
criminals,
going to
ain't
report
nobody
it,
really gonna say nothing.
it's not going to be reported. It ain't going to be the same. But I mean, it's that
Right.
kind of stuff that
Hmm.
is, like I said, it's atypical because it's not what you would expect. Because I know if I suddenly had superpowers, there might be signs. I'm just saying. you know,
Right.
if you live around me, if you know me, there might be signs. Other than that, no one else would be knowing. But at the
Right.
same time, I like the fact that they had real world problems. It wasn't like,
Yes.
like I mean, I like Iron Man and I like the Hulk, Incredible Hulk, and all that, but Iron Man he had money to begin with, and he
Yes.
was a genius. I mean, he wasn't
Yes.
struggling for nothing. That kind of thing on whether I should go evil or not. I mean, why should you? I mean, you had there, it wasn't a struggle, and I think when you're in trouble, if there's something going on, it's a little bit hard to be on a straight and narrow path if this is going on over here and this is going over there, I'm trying to make it and try to do right, but everything is pointing me to a different direction, and it's a lot harder when that tightrope is, I could, if I don't get this job, I might not be able to see my son, or I'm gonna lose my house, or I'm gonna lose my, where I'm staying, and if I don't do this, like I'm trying to get it so me and my mom can be together, and you find out, she's crap. But I mean, just those things is like, if to me, if you, I'm not saying
Technically,
money's the
is
cure
she
for all
crap?
things, but if you have money, huh?
I said, but technically, is she crap? Hmm.
Well, no,
Hmm.
the mom, she decided to stay. She knew what kind of man her husband was, and with the
Oh, you're talking about Rodney. I was thinking about Taser's mom.
yeah, Rodney,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
No, not
I
Taylor's
was thinking
mom. I'm
about
talking
Taser's
about
mom because
Rodney's
she got
mom.
different. She's struggling for a different reason. But you're
No,
right.
I was
But
talking about that. I'm sorry.
Rodney's
I should have
mom,
said
I was
Rodney.
angry. I was mad at the whole
Yeah,
exchange.
like, I know what kind of man he is, and I'm gonna abandon you and stay with him. So
Right. And I'm
bye.
gone. I'm gonna keep living high on the hog, and
Yes.
you go back to that hostel where you were, and I hope that things are working. I was like, they put him in a hostel when he was 16. Like, oh, I'm sorry, spoilers
Yeah.
everywhere. But mhm.
But it's that kind of stuff. I mean, but
Did they even
it's
watch the
that kind
movie
of real
Hostel?
world, huh?
I know, right?
What's that
Nothing.
on here?
She said, did they even watch?
But
I said, did they even watch the movie Hostel? I'm joking.
his stepdad probably didn't care if he because I know that it was a horror. He probably didn't care. Send him out anyway. He ain't staying in this house with us. And she was fine with that. But I mean, the fact that he had that and that was that was his struggle with, and that's what he was trying to get. But he was trying to get money regardless for that. But even though he's willing to do illegal stuff for it, you know,
To rescue his
it's
mom.
just that
So
so
because
many
he thought he
people
had to
have real
rescue them.
problems.
Yep. Because he was willing to do all that to
Yes.
rescue his mom and his sister, only to find out that his mom was like, "I'm not a hostage. I'm staying here." Yeah. Mhm.
Not a hostage. I'm willing here. I'm really upset here. And I know we haven't talked about it. I'm not sure we're going to go into the sickle cell, but I really liked that part of it because when we are, you study genetics and you talk about sickle cell and you're saying, how can sickle cell still exist when the people who have it are sick or can die? If it wasn't for some of this technology and the medical resources we have now, they did not live long, as long as they can now. And in genetics, that was one of the things we studied was that. And it's like, why is it still around? It's because the people who carried that gene for sickle cell were less likely to die or get malaria. And that's why it would keep coming up because those people had a kind of immunity. I was like, look at him putting that in, kind
Right.
of in there
Right.
to have
Yes.
that instead of it being a liability or prevent like malaria stuff like that. It was actually yes, you will get superpowers or you might have
Mm-hmm.
superpowers. And I mean, I
Right.
just really like that part of it too to bring that into
Yep.
it.
Again, that's the thing that drew me in to see him flip that and use it in a different way. And I agree with you. I think it's interesting. And for me, because I know the background of it, I'm always like, but they said he didn't carry the trait. So how come so now I'm trying to figure out why everybody who has powers and what the connection is
Yeah.
between
Yeah,
all of them, because I'm trying to figure out, because when you ask his when they were in the hospital and they asked his mom, and we now know the hospital. But anyway, when they ask his mom and they say, and he doesn't have the trait, and she says, "No, we're blessed." And I'm Michael, and so I couldn't figure out why he got super. Like I'm trying to, and so I like that there's that thread running underneath it of the true sci-fi, like of truly trying to figure out what is happening, what is the common thread, what is I think we and I don't want to give a million spoilers. So I'm just gonna say I think we now all understand by that last episode what they're trying to do with the people that have gotten quote unquote taken and what the ultimate goal there is. But I think it's still okay, and I can't even say the ultimate goal. I think we understand what they're doing to those
Yes.
people. But I don't think we know the end game yet. And I'm grateful for that. And
Right.
I'm still trying to understand who why. Like why some people have it and some don't. Like now we know why Craze has it, but now, I think my question is, given any other set of circumstances, would he still, or is it because of the choices he made to get out of prison? Like, there's a lot. I mean, the number of
It's
of
a lot.
threads that Ratman managed to put into these episodes, but still have it feel cohesive enough that
Exactly.
you that I appreciated the dangling thread, because I know I get to look forward to that coming back, but that also so much of it was still together that you could follow it. Because sometimes you get, and it's
Yeah.
so many different tangents, you're like, I don't even know what's happening. But in this, even though there were these separate storylines going on, and we were dedicating time to each of them, and there were still these hanging questions, I didn't feel like I didn't get it. And sometimes when I watch sci-fi, I feel like I didn't quite get it, but he found the sweet spot of, I get it and now I want to get more. I get it and now I want to know X, Y, and Z. I get it, and I'm hoping in season 2 I get to see how, what, I think he left enough questions on the table to make everybody want a season 2, but enough that if there had only been a season 1, we would have been disappointed. But I think I could have still said, I could have made enough of my own inferences to keep to figure out what I think happened at the end, right? So I liked that. I liked that the sci-fi was embedded in the story in a way that made it relatable, that made it consumable, because I think sometimes sci-fi is so sci-fi that I can't get in there, but because it is so intertwined in these interpersonal relationships and in these characters and in their journeys, it was easier to absorb it. I think it's because he introduced the people first, not the science. And I think
Yes.
sometimes that's the difference.
Right.
We didn't see a lot of the science except in glimpses until like 2.5, 3, instead of it being so forward in the first ones. We didn't, so I wasn't, one like Soylent Green. But so I appreciated that. I appreciate the way he weaved the sci-fi into it and made me want to be engaged in also the questions about the sciencey part, about the why, about the how, about the who, because I think that's an interesting level. I think at the end, my assumption about what was coming out of the portal changed about halfway through, because
Yeah.
who I originally thought was coming out the portal, I realized wasn't what was actually coming out the portal, and then I was like, oh dang! But now, what did I see, and where was that? So yeah, so I,
Yeah.
because I thought it was somebody
Yeah.
else, but now I see nope. Mm-mm. And so I think that was also interesting. The minute that last episode when the masks are removed and you see, I mean, I think that might have been a commentary on America, or on society in general, that some people can't operate without the mask. But yeah, and by the mask I mean by the thing that keeps them hidden from society. Like, it's easy to be in the background, and it's easy when you're in that suit with the silver mask and everything. But the minute they were coming off and the fighting was starting, and people regain their humanity again, I think that was probably one of the most poignant things about that fight scene, was especially when you see the girl and you see her and she's like, and her anger is no longer this programmable thing, but it's related to the person, her person, and she regains her humanity for
Right.
that moment, and she's like, no. And so I think in those moments, I mean, it was just, I mean, he did an amazing job, and because I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm not gonna be on the sci-fi podcast, but this one I was like, yo,
Right.
this is
We're glad to have you here, Marcy.
right.
We will continue this discussion on our next episode. Make sure you're subscribed to Nerdy Romantics Podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and visit nerdyromanticspodcast.com to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can get show notes directly in your inbox. Thank you for listening.